The morning sun cast long shadows across the cobblestones of Buckingham Palace as thousands of tourists gathered for the changing of the guard ceremony. Among them stood Derek Morrison, a wealthy American businessman from Texas, checking his expensive Rolex and tapping his Italian leather shoes impatiently. Derek had flown to London first class, staying at the most expensive hotel in the city, all to impress his new girlfriend, Amanda. She was 20 years younger than his 45 years, with blonde hair and a taste for luxury that matched his bank account. This trip was supposed to seal their relationship, maybe even lead to an engagement. "This is taking forever," Derek complained loudly, his voice carrying over the excited chatter of families and tourists around him. "In America, things run on time." Amanda giggled and took another selfie, her phone case glittering with fake diamonds. "Just be patient, Derek. This is like totally historic." The royal guards stood motionless in their iconic red uniforms and tall black hats, their faces expressionless despite the growing crowd. One guard, positioned near the palace gates, remained perfectly still as tourists snapped photos and children pointed in wonder. This guard was James Mitchell, 24 years old, who had served in the Royal Guard for 3 years. He had grown up in a working-class family in Manchester, where his father worked in a factory and his mother cleaned offices at night. James had joined the military at 18, seeing it as his chance to serve his country and build a better life. Standing guard required incredible discipline. James had trained for months to maintain perfect posture and composure, no matter what happened around him. He had endured tourists trying to make him laugh, children pulling at his uniform, and countless camera flashes. Through it all, he remained professional and dignified. Derek pushed through the crowd, pulling Amanda behind him. "Come on, babe. Let's get closer. I want the best shot for my Instagram." "Sir, please stay behind the rope," called out a police officer nearby. Derek flashed his most arrogant smile. "Do you know who I am? I own 3 car dealerships in Texas. I'm not just some regular tourist." The officer remained firm but polite. "Everyone needs to stay in the designated area, sir." Derek's face reddened. He was used to getting his way, used to people bowing to his wealth and influence. In his hometown, his money opened every door and solved every problem. The idea that some British police officer wouldn't bend the rules for him was infuriating. "This is ridiculous," he muttered, but stepped back behind the rope as the ceremony began. The guards started their precise movements, marching in perfect synchronization. The crowd fell silent, watching in awe as centuries of tradition unfolded before them. But Derek wasn't interested in tradition or history. He was only thinking about how this would look on social media, how impressed his business associates would be when they saw him at Buckingham Palace. "Man, get a picture of me next to that guard," he said, pointing at James. "Derek, I don't think we're supposed to get that close," Amanda whispered. "It's nonsense. I paid good money for this trip. I'm getting my photo." Derek ducked under the rope and approached James, who remained perfectly still, despite being aware of the approaching tourists. James had dealt with situations like this before. The protocol was clear: maintain position and composure unless there was a direct threat to security. "Hey there, soldier boy," Derek said loudly, positioning himself next to James. "Amanda, take the picture." Amanda hesitated, looking around nervously at the disapproving faces in the crowd and the approaching security personnel. "I said take the picture," Derek snapped. A security guard approached quickly. "Sir, you need to return to the designated area immediately." Derek spun around, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "Are you kidding me? Do you know how much money I spend when I travel? I'm not some backpacking college kid." The security guard remained professional. "Sir, the rules apply to everyone." "Please return to the viewing area." Derek looked around and noticed that dozens of people were now staring at him, some recording the scene with their phones. His plan to look important and sophisticated was backfiring spectacularly. In his rage and humiliation, Derek did something that shocked everyone present. He turned toward James, who still stood motionless and professional, and spat directly in his face. The crowd gasped. Several people screamed. Children started crying. Spit slowly dripped down James's cheek, but the young guard didn't move a muscle. He couldn't. His training, his duty, and his professionalism required him to maintain his position no matter what happened. "There," Derek said smugly, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. "That's what I think of your stupid rules and your toy soldiers."
Amanda
stared at her boyfriend in horror. "Derek, what did you just do?" But Derek was too caught up in his own anger to notice her shock. These people need to learn some respect. In America, money talks. Security guards immediately surrounded Derek, their expressions grim. The crowd began booing and shouting angry words at him. Parents covered their children's eyes. Other tourists backed away in disgust. "Sir, you're under arrest for assault," the lead security guard announced, pulling out handcuffs. "Assault?" Derek laughed. "I barely touched him." "Spitting on someone is assault under British law," the officer explained calmly. "You have the right to remain silent, ... As Derek was handcuffed, he finally seemed to realize the gravity of his situation. The cameras that had been recording the ceremony were now focused entirely on him. His face, contorted with rage and disbelief, was being broadcast to millions of people watching live streams of the palace. Amanda had disappeared into the crowd. Too embarrassed and disgusted to stand by him any longer, she had seen a side of Derek that repulsed her completely. James still stood at his post. The spit now dried on his cheek, maintaining his dignity and composure despite the humiliation he had endured. He had 4 more hours left in his shift, and he would complete every minute of it with the same professionalism he had shown before the incident. As Derek was led away in handcuffs, shouting protests about his rights and demanding to speak to the American ambassador, he had no idea that this single moment of cruelty would destroy everything he had worked to build. The crowd slowly returned their attention to the ceremony. But the incident had left everyone shaken. How could someone be so disrespectful to a young man who was simply doing his job with honor and dignity? 3 hours later, Derek Morrison sat in a holding cell at a London police station, still wearing his expensive suit, but looking far less dignified than when his day had started. His perfectly styled hair was now disheveled, and his face showed a mixture of anger, confusion, and growing worry. "This is insane," he shouted at the duty sergeant through the bars. "I want to call my lawyer. I want to call the American embassy. You can't treat an American citizen like this." The duty sergeant, patient man named William Hughes, who had dealt with difficult detainees for 20 years, looked up from his paperwork. "Mr. Morrison, you were informed of your rights. You'll be allowed your phone call shortly." "Shortly. I've been in here for hours. Do you know who I am?" "I own Morrison Motors, the biggest car dealership chain in East Texas." Sergeant Hughes had heard variations of this speech countless times from wealthy tourists who thought their money would get them out of trouble abroad. "Sir, your wealth doesn't change British law. You assaulted a member of Her Majesty's Guard." "Didn't assault anyone? I barely touched the guy." Spitting on someone is classified as assault. The incident was witnessed by hundreds of people and recorded on multiple devices. The evidence is quite clear. Derek slumped onto the narrow bench in his cell, finally beginning to understand that his usual tactics weren't working. In Texas, he could make problems disappear with a few phone calls and the right donations to political campaigns. Here, he was just another criminal. Meanwhile, at Buckingham Palace, James Mitchell had finally been relieved of his post. His commanding officer, Captain Sarah Davies, had immediately sent him to see the medic and then called him into her office.
"Ow."
"How are you feeling, Mitchell?" Captain Davies asked with genuine concern. "I'm fine, ma'am. It was just part of the job." Captain Davies studied the young soldier's face. Despite his composed exterior, she could see the tension in his jaw and the slight tremor in his hands. "Mitchell, what that tourist did was completely unacceptable. No one should have to endure that while serving their country." "I understand." "Ma'am, I maintained my position as required." "Yes, you did. Your professionalism under those circumstances was exemplary. But I want you to know that we're pursuing this matter fully. The Crown Prosecution Service will be handling the case personally." James nodded, though privately he wondered if anything would really come of it. He had grown up seeing wealthy people escape consequences for their actions. Why would this be different? Back at the police station, Derek was finally allowed his phone call. His hands shook as he dialed his lawyer's number in Dallas. "Jim, it's Derek. I need your help. I'm in some trouble in London." "Derek, what kind of trouble?" "They arrested me for assault, but it's completely bogus. I barely touched this guy. It's just need to get me out of here." His lawyer, Jim Patterson, had been Derek's legal representative for 15 years. "Derek, slow down. Tell me exactly what happened." Derek launched into his version of events, painting himself as the victim of an overzealous British legal system and unfair treatment of American tourists. "Derek," Jim interrupted, "did you actually spit on someone?" "Well, yes, but there's—" "No, but Derek, that's assault in every jurisdiction I know of, including Texas." "What were you thinking?" "I was angry. These people were treating me like some common tourist." "Derek, you are a common tourist. Your money doesn't give you the right to assault people. I can't help you from here. You need a British solicitor." The line went dead. Derek stared at the phone in disbelief. His own lawyer had hung up on him. Unknown to Derek, the story of his arrest was already spreading far beyond London. Someone in the crowd had live-streamed the entire incident, and the video was going viral on social media. The sight of a wealthy American tourist spitting on a stoic British guard had outraged people around the world. At British Pride posted, "Absolutely disgusting behavior from this American tourist. Our guards deserve respect, not this abuse." London Local shared, "Witness this firsthand." The guard showed incredible professionalism while this man acted like an animal. At Travel Shame retweeted the video with, "This is why Americans get a bad reputation abroad. Shameful behavior." The video had been viewed over 1 million times in just 3 hours, and it was being picked up by news outlets across Britain and America. Back in Texas, Derek's business partner Mike Chen was having lunch when his phone started buzzing with notifications. When he saw the video, he nearly choked on his sandwich. "Oh no, Derek, what have you done?" he muttered, immediately calling an emergency meeting with their other business partners. By evening, the story had reached major news networks. CNN, BBC, Fox News all ran segments about the ugly American tourist who had assaulted a British royal guard. Derek's girlfriend Amanda had made it back to her hotel, but she couldn't stop thinking about what she had witnessed. The man she thought she knew had revealed himself to be capable of such cruelty and disrespect. She had been raised to respect service members, and seeing Derek spit on that young soldier had sickened her. She packed her bags and booked a flight back to Dallas, leaving Derek a note at the hotel front desk. "What you did today showed me who you really are. Can't be with someone capable of such behavior. Don't contact me." At the police station, Derek was informed that he would be held overnight and appear before a magistrate in the morning. "Overnight?" Derek protested. "I have rights." "You have the right to legal representation," Sergeant Hughes replied. "Solicitor will meet you at court tomorrow morning." As Derek lay on the narrow cot in his cell, he could hear other inmates talking about him. Word had spread even inside the jail that he was the American who had spat on the royal guard. "That's him, isn't it?" one prisoner whispered loudly. "The one from the video. Disgusting pig." Derek pulled his expensive suit jacket over his head, trying to block out their voices. For the first time since his arrest, he began to wonder if maybe he had made a terrible mistake. Meanwhile, James Mitchell sat in his small flat in London, trying to process the day's events. His phone had been ringing constantly with reporters wanting interviews, but he had ignored them all. He had been raised to be humble and private, and the attention made him uncomfortable. His mother called from Manchester, her voice filled with concern and pride. "James, love, are you all right?" "I saw what happened on the news. I'm fine, ma'am, just doing my job." "That man was horrible to you. You handled it with such dignity, son. Your father and I are so proud." As James finally fell asleep, he had no idea that his quiet professionalism in the face of such disrespect had made him a hero to millions of people around the world. The real consequences of Derek's actions were only just beginning to unfold. The next morning, Derek Morrison appeared before Magistrate Eleanor Whitfield at Westminster Magistrates Court. He had managed to hire a British solicitor, David Thompson, who met him 30 minutes before the hearing. "Mr. Morrison, Thompson," said grimly. "I'll be honest with you. This case has attracted enormous media attention. The video has been viewed over 10 million times, and public sentiment is strongly against you." Derek adjusted his wrinkled suit, looking nothing like the confident businessman who had started his London vacation. "Can't you make this go away? I'll pay whatever it costs." Thompson shook his head. "Sir, this isn't about money. You assaulted a member of the Royal Guard in front of hundreds of witnesses. The Crown Prosecution Service is taking this very seriously." When Derek entered the courtroom, he was shocked to see it packed with reporters and members of the public. Camera flashes went off, despite court officials trying to maintain order. Magistrate Whitfield, a stern woman in her 50s, who had presided over thousands of cases, looked down at Derek with undisguised disapproval. "Mr. Derek Morrison," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the silent courtroom, "you are charged with assault against Lance Corporal James Mitchell of Her Majesty's Guard. How do you plead?" Derek's solicitor had advised him to plead guilty to avoid a lengthy trial and potentially harsher sentence. "Guilty, Your Honor," Derek said quietly. "I'm sorry I didn't hear you," Magistrate Whitfield said, though she had heard perfectly well. "Guilty," Derek said louder, his voice cracking. Slightly, the magistrate reviewed her notes. "Mr. Morrison, I have watched the video evidence of this incident multiple times. Your behavior was not only criminal but utterly disgraceful. Lance Corporal Mitchell is a young man serving his country with honor and dignity. You a visitor too. Our nation chose to treat him with the utmost disrespect and cruelty." Derek's face burned with shame as the magistrate continued. "I sentence you to 6 months in prison, suspended for 2 years, meaning you will not serve time if you commit no further offenses. You are fined £5,000, and you are banned from entering any royal property for life. Additionally, you must complete 100 hours of community service, which you may complete in your home country under supervision." Derek felt his legs go weak. A criminal conviction, a lifetime ban from royal properties, and now he would be a convicted criminal. "Furthermore," the magistrate added, "I am recommending to the Home Office that you be placed on a list restricting your future entry to the United Kingdom. Any future visa applications will be subject to intense scrutiny." As Derek was led from the courtroom, reporters shouted questions at him. He kept his head down, trying to avoid the cameras. But there was no escape. Meanwhile, back in Texas, the consequences of Derek's actions were spreading like wildfire through his business and personal life. Morrison Motors had 3 locations across East Texas, employing over 200 people. Derek's business partner Mike Chen had spent the entire night fielding angry phone calls from customers, suppliers, and employees. "Mike, we can't be associated with this guy anymore," said Tom Rodriguez, their biggest customer, who owned a construction company. "My workers are mostly Hispanic and military veterans. They're disgusted by what Derek did. If his name stays on those dealerships, I'm taking my business elsewhere." Similar calls came in throughout the day. Veterans groups announced boycotts. The local Chamber of Commerce voted to revoke Derek's membership. Even his country club started proceedings to expel him. Derek's ex-girlfriend, Amanda, had made it back to Dallas and immediately went to stay with her sister. She had deleted all photos of Derek from her social media accounts and changed her relationship status to single. "I can't believe I was dating that man for 6 months," she told her sister Sarah over coffee. "How did I not see what he was really like?" "Maybe because he never showed you," Sarah replied. Rich men can hide their true nature when everything is going their way. It's only when they face resistance that you see who they really are. Back in London, James Mitchell was experiencing something completely different. Letters of support poured into the palace from around the world. A GoFundMe page set up by strangers had raised over £50,000 for him, though he hadn't asked for it and wasn't sure he wanted it. Captain Davies called James into her office again. "Mitchell, I have some news. The palace has received thousands of letters praising your professionalism and conduct. Her Majesty herself has asked to meet with you personally." James felt overwhelmed. "Ma'am, I was just doing my job." "Yes, you were. But you did it under extraordinary circumstances, and that deserves recognition." The meeting with the Queen was scheduled for the following week, but news of it leaked to the press. The contrast between James's honor and Derek's disgrace became an even bigger story. Derek, meanwhile, had returned to his expensive London hotel to find that his credit cards had been declined. Back home, his business accounts were frozen as his partners moved to protect the company's assets and reputation. Mike Chen had called an emergency meeting with their lawyers and accountants. "We need to buy Derek out immediately," he announced. "Every day his name stays on these dealerships, we lose more customers and employees." Derek's personal assistant back in Dallas, Maria Gonzalez, had quit via email. Her resignation letter was brief but pointed. "I cannot continue working for someone who would treat a young soldier with such disrespect. My brother served in Afghanistan, and I know the sacrifice these men make. Your behavior was unforgivable." When Derek finally managed to get through to Mike Chen from London, the conversation was brief and devastating. "Derek, we're buying you out. The papers are already drawn up. You can't do that, Mike. I built this business. Read your partnership agreement, Derek. There's a morality clause. Your actions have damaged the company's reputation beyond repair. We're offering you fair market value for your shares, minus the damages your behavior has caused. This is insane. One little incident and everyone turns on me? Derek, you spat on a soldier. That's not a little incident. That's who you are when you don't get your way. We just never saw it before because you always got your way." The line went dead, just like his lawyer's call had the day before. Derek sat on his hotel bed, staring at his phone. In less than 48 hours, he had lost his girlfriend, his business, his reputation, and potentially his freedom to travel. All because he couldn't control his temper when a security guard told him to follow the rules like everyone else. 3,000 miles away in Texas, Derek's elderly neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, was being interviewed by a local news station. "I always thought Derek was a bit full of himself," she said, "but I never imagined he could do something so cruel. The poor young man was just doing his job. Derek should be ashamed of himself." The reporter asked if she was surprised by Derek's behavior. "Not really," Mrs. Patterson replied thoughtfully. "Derek never learned that money can't buy you respect. Respect has to be earned through how you treat others, especially those who can't fight back. That guard couldn't defend himself, and Derek took advantage of that. Tells you everything you need to know about his character." As Derek prepared to leave London the next morning, facing a mountain of legal and financial problems back home, he still didn't fully understand how one moment of cruelty had unraveled his entire life. He blamed the media, the British legal system, his business partners, and everyone except the person truly responsible, himself. 1 week after Derek Morrison's court appearance, James Mitchell stood in the throne room at Buckingham Palace, wearing his dress uniform and trying to calm his nerves. He had grown up in a small council house in Manchester, and the idea of meeting the Queen still seemed surreal. Her Majesty entered with her characteristic grace, accompanied by 2 ladies-in-waiting. Despite being in her 90s, she carried herself with dignity and strength that reminded James why he was proud to serve in her guard. "Lance Corporal Mitchell," the Queen said warmly, "I wanted to meet you personally to express my gratitude for your exemplary conduct under such trying circumstances." "Your Majesty, I was simply doing my duty," James replied, his voice steady, despite his nervousness. "Yes, you were. But duty performed with such grace and professionalism deserves recognition. You represented not just the crown, but the finest qualities of British character." The Queen presented James with a special commendation, a rare honor for a young soldier. "Your composure in the face of such disrespect has made you an example to service members around the world." Meanwhile, Derek Morrison sat in his apartment in Dallas, surrounded by legal documents and facing the ruins of his former life. The apartment was modest compared to the mansion he had been forced to sell to pay legal fees and buy out his business partners. His lawyer had managed to negotiate a settlement with Morrison Motors, but Derek received far less than his shares were worth. The morality clause in the partnership agreement had cost him dearly. Derek's phone rang, constantly with reporters wanting interviews, but he had stopped answering. The story of his downfall had become international news, with headlines like "From Riches to Ruin," "How One Act of Cruelty Destroyed a Texas Millionaire." His former employees were doing better without him. Mike Chen had renamed the business. Lone Star Motors, and sales had actually increased as customers returned, drawn by the company's public apology and their donation to veterans' charities. "It's amazing," said Jessica Torres, a sales associate, who had worked under Derek for 5 years. "The workplace is so much more positive now. We didn't realize how much his attitude was affecting everyone until he was gone." Derek had also discovered that his criminal conviction in Britain was affecting his life in Texas. When he tried to join a new country club, his application was rejected. His insurance company had dropped him after seeing the news coverage. Even his dentist's office had called to say they were no longer accepting him as a patient. The community service requirement was proving to be Derek's biggest challenge. The court had arranged for him to work at a veterans rehabilitation center in Dallas, helping soldiers who had been injured in combat. On his first day, Derek met the program coordinator, Staff Sergeant Maria Santos, a Marine veteran who had lost her left leg to an IED in Afghanistan. "Mr. Morrison," she said, studying him with sharp eyes, "I've seen the video of what you did in London. I want you to understand something. The men and women you'll be working with here have sacrificed more than you can imagine for their country. You will treat them with absolute respect, or you'll be back in front of a judge." Derek nodded weakly, finally beginning to understand the gravity of his situation. His first assignment was to help distribute meals to veterans in wheelchairs. One of them, a young man named Tommy Walsh, who had been paralyzed by a roadside bomb in Iraq, looked up at Derek with curious eyes. "You're that guy from the news, aren't you? The one who spit on the British guard?" Derek's face burned with shame. Yes, Tommy studied him for a moment. "That guard showed more strength standing still than you showed in your entire life up to." That point, the words hit Derek like a physical blow. This young man, confined to a wheelchair at 23 years old, was lecturing him about strength and character. Over the following weeks, Derek found himself face to face with the reality of military service. He met Sarah Johnson, a Navy nurse who suffered from PTSD after treating wounded soldiers in combat zones. He worked alongside Robert Martinez, an Army sergeant who had lost both arms to an explosive device while trying to save his fellow soldiers. Each story chipped away at Derek's self-centered worldview. These people had given everything for their country and asked for nothing in return except respect and support. Back in London, James Mitchell's life had taken a completely different turn. The GoFundMe page set up by strangers had grown to over £100,000, despite James's reluctance to accept the money. "I don't feel right taking this," he told Captain Davies. "I was just doing my job." "Mitchell, people gave this money because they were inspired by your character. Perhaps you should consider using it to help others." James thought about his working-class background and the struggles his family had faced. He decided to donate half the money to a charity that helped military families with financial difficulties, and used the other half to pay for his younger sister's university education. The contrast between James's humility and Derek's former arrogance became a topic of discussion in newspapers and online forums worldwide. One evening, while Derek was cleaning wheelchairs at the Veterans Center, Tommy Walsh asked him a question that would haunt him for months. "What made you think it was okay to spit on another person?" Derek stopped working and really thought about the question. "I was angry. I felt like I wasn't being treated with the respect I deserved." "Respect you deserved?" Tommy laughed bitterly. "Based on what? Your money? That guard earned respect by serving his country with honor. What had you ever done to earn respect except inherit money and sell cars?" Derek had no answer. For 45 years, he had believed that wealth automatically commanded respect. He'd never questioned whether he actually deserved the deference people showed him. "You know what's funny?" Tommy continued. "That guard probably makes less in a year than you used to spend on a vacation. But he has something you never had. Dignity." Bad. That night, Derek sat in his small apartment and did something he hadn't done in years. He really looked at himself, not the successful businessman image he had cultivated, but who he actually was as a person. He realized that he had never done anything meaningful with his life. His car dealerships sold products made by other people to customers who needed transportation. He had never created anything, never helped anyone, never sacrificed for a greater cause. The young guard he had spit on had dedicated his life to serving others. The veterans Derek was now working with had risked everything for their country. What had Derek Morrison ever done except accumulate wealth and demand respect he hadn't earned? For the first time in his adult life, Derek Morrison began to feel something he had never experienced before. Genuine shame. Not just about being caught and punished, but about the kind of person he had become. 3 months into his community service, Derek received an unexpected letter. It was from James Mitchell in London, written in careful handwriting on simple paper. Mr. Morrison, I hope this letter finds you well. I wanted you to know that I harbor no personal anger toward you. For what happened? I hope your experience with the veterans in Dallas helps you understand the honor that comes from serving others. Perhaps some good can come from that difficult day for both of us. Derek read the letter 3 times, amazed by the grace and forgiveness of the young man he had so cruelly wronged. James Mitchell had every right to hate him, but instead offered understanding and hope for redemption. It was the first act of genuine kindness Derek had received since his world fell apart. And it came from the person he had least right to expect it from. 6 months later, Marcus received a phone call that made his day. Emma's voice on the other end of the line was bright and full of excitement. Officer Johnson, guess what? I lost my first tooth. Marcus smiled, settling into his chair in the airport. Security office. That's amazing, Emma. Did the tooth fairy visit? Yes, but Aunt Sarah says the tooth fairy is really just her. She gave me $2 and let me stay up late to put it under my pillow myself. This was their weekly phone call, something they had maintained faithfully since Emma moved to Los Angeles. Each conversation brought updates about her new life, and Marcus treasured every one. How's school going? He asked. Really good. My teacher, Miss Garcia, says I'm reading above grade level. And guess what else? Aunt Sarah is teaching me to play piano. That's wonderful. Are you happy there, Emma? Derry, happy. Aunt Sarah makes pancakes on Saturday mornings, and we go to the park every Sunday. Sometimes Mrs. Chen lets me pet Whiskers. Marcus could hear the contentment in Emma's voice, so different from the hollow sadness she had carried at the airport. Sarah had clearly provided the stability and love that Emma needed. How's your mama doing? Marcus asked gently. This was always the most delicate part of their conversations. She's in a place called rehab. She calls me twice a week and she sounds much better. She's learning to paint. She sent me a picture of a sunset she made. Jennifer had been in an intensive rehabilitation program for 4 months now. According to Linda Rodriguez, who still checked in regularly, Jennifer was making genuine progress this time. I'm proud of you for staying in touch with her, Marcus said. Aunt Sarah says that people can get sick in their brains just like they get sick in their bodies. When they get better, we should forgive them. The wisdom in Emma's words, filtered through Sarah's gentle guidance, impressed Marcus. Sarah had somehow managed to help Emma maintain love for her mother while protecting her from disappointment. Emma, I have some news too, Marcus said. I'm getting married in 3 months. Really? That's so exciting? What's her name? Her name is Beth. She's a nurse here at the hospital in Denver. You helped me meet her, actually. How did I help? Marcus smiled, remembering. After you left, I started volunteering at the children's hospital on weekends. I wanted to help other kids like you. Beth works there, and we met in the pediatric ward. That's the best news ever. Are you going to have kids? We're hoping to. Beth has always wanted to be a mom. You'll be a great daddy, Emma said with certainty. You helped me when I needed it most. After they finished their call, Marcus reflected on how much his life had changed since meeting. Emma, helping her, had awakened something in him that had been sleeping since his own daughter's death. He'd started volunteering not just at the hospital, but also at a local organization that helped families affected by addiction. His supervisor, Janet, knocked on his office door. Marcus, there's a situation at gate B12. Unaccompanied minor, and the parents aren't responding to calls. Marcus grabbed his radio and hurried through the airport. When he arrived at the gate, he saw a boy about 10 years old sitting alone, tears streaming down his face. Hey there, Marcus said, approaching gently. I'm Officer Johnson. What's your name? Tyler, the boy sniffled. My mom was supposed to pick me up, but she's not here. Marcus felt the familiar tug at his heart. 6 months ago, he might have simply called social services and waited. Now, He sat down next to Tyler and really listened to his story. It turned out Tyler's mother had been in a car accident on the way to the airport. She was fine, but her car was damaged, and she was stranded. The boy's father was deployed overseas. With the military, Marcus called the hospital where Tyler's mother had been taken, helped coordinate a ride for her to the airport, and stayed with Tyler until she arrived. The whole situation was resolved in 2 hours, but Marcus knew that Tyler would remember that someone had cared enough to stay with him during the scary waiting period. "You've gotten good at this," Janet observed as they watched Tyler reunite. With his mother, "I had a good teacher," Marcus replied, thinking of Emma. 2 weeks later, Marcus received an unexpected package in the mail. Inside was a hand-drawn invitation decorated with hearts and flowers. "You are invited to Emma Rose Peterson's adoption party. Aunt Sarah is going to be my mom for real now." Marcus stared at the invitation, feeling a mix of joy and surprise. Sarah had mentioned during their last phone call that she was considering adoption, but he hadn't realized how far along the process had gotten. He immediately called Sarah's number. "Marcus." Sarah's voice was filled with excitement. "Did you get Emma's invitation? Just now? Congratulations. This is wonderful news. The court date is next Friday. Jennifer signed the papers last week. She's doing much better, but she knows that Emma needs permanency and stability. It was actually her idea." Marcus felt a deep respect for Jennifer's decision. It took tremendous love and courage for a mother to choose what was best for her child over what she might want for herself. "How does Emma feel about it?" "She's thrilled. She's been calling me Mom Sarah for practice. The funny thing is, it doesn't feel like we're becoming a family. It feels like we're making official what was already true." "I wish I could be there for the ceremony," Marcus said. "Actually, that's why I'm calling. Emma specifically asked if you could come. I know it's a lot to ask, but you're so important to her, to both of us." Marcus didn't hesitate. "I'll be there. I wouldn't miss it." The following Friday, Marcus sat in a Los Angeles courtroom wearing his best suit. Emma sat between Sarah and Jennifer, holding both their hands. Jennifer looked healthier than she had in the hospital, with clear eyes and color in her cheeks. When the judge asked Emma if she wanted Sarah to be her mother, Emma's response was clear and confident. "Yes, Your Honor. Sarah has been taking care of me and loving me. She makes me feel safe." After the judge signed the papers, Emma hugged Jennifer tightly. "Hey, you'll always be my first mama," she whispered. "But now I have Sarah Mama, too." Jennifer wiped away tears. "That makes me the luckiest mama in the world. I get to share you with someone who loves you as much as I do." At the small celebration afterward, Emma pulled Marcus aside. "Glad you came," she said. "I wanted you to see that everything turned out okay." "I can see that, sweetheart. You look so happy." "I am happy. And Mama Jennifer is getting better. She has a job now at the rehab place, helping other people who got sick like she did." Marcus looked over at Jennifer, who was talking quietly with Sarah. The two sisters seemed to have found their way back to each other through their shared love for Emma. "Emma, do you remember what you said to me at the airport? About how grown-ups are supposed to help kids?" Emma nodded. "You helped me remember that. You made me want to be better at helping people." "Good," Emma said matter-of-factly. "Friends do." As the celebration continued, Marcus watched this little girl who had somehow managed to heal not just herself, but her entire family. Emma had forgiven her mother's mistakes, embraced her aunt's love, and even inspired a stranger to become a better person. Later that evening, Sarah walked Marcus to his rental car. "I can't thank you enough for everything you did," she said. "If you hadn't stopped Emma at the airport that day, if you hadn't cared enough to dig deeper, Emma would have found her way," Marcus said. "Kids like her always do. They're stronger than we give them credit for." Maybe, but she found her way because someone cared enough to help. That matters. As Marcus drove to the airport for his flight back to Denver, he thought about the ripple effects of that day 6 months ago. Emma was now in a loving, permanent home. Jennifer was in recovery and had found purpose in helping others. Sarah had become the mother she was meant to be, and Marcus himself had rediscovered his passion for helping others. 3 months later, Marcus stood at the altar of a small church in Denver waiting for Beth to walk down the aisle. In the front row sat several children from the hospital, where he volunteered, including a little girl named Sophia, who reminded him of Emma. When the minister asked if anyone had anything to say, Marcus hadn't planned to speak, but he found himself stepping forward. 6 months ago, I met a little girl who taught me that helping others isn't just something we should do. It's who we are at our best. Today, I'm marrying a woman who has devoted her life to healing children. Together, we want to build a family based on that same principle of caring for others. After the ceremony, Marcus's phone rang. It was Emma, calling from Los Angeles. "I heard you got married today," she said excitedly. "Sarah helped me calculate the time difference so I could call you. Thank you for remembering, Emma. That means the world to me. I made you and Beth a wedding present. Sarah is going to mail it to you." A week later, Marcus opened a package containing a photo album Emma had created. The first page showed the drawing she had made in the hospital, stick figures holding hands under a bright sun. The rest of the album was filled with pictures and drawings of all the people whose lives had intersected. Because of that day at the airport, Emma in her new bedroom, Sarah at her piano, Jennifer painting at the rehab center, Marcus and Beth at the hospital volunteer appreciation dinner. On the last page, Emma had written in her careful second-grade handwriting, "Sometimes when bad things happen, good things can grow from them, like flowers in a garden after it rains." Marcus showed the album to Beth, who wiped away tears as she turned each page. "She's remarkable," Beth said. "I can see why she changed your life." "She didn't just change my life," Marcus replied. "She showed me what it was supposed to be." 2 years after that life-changing day at Denver International Airport, Marcus stood in the arrival area holding a sign that read "Peterson Family." His heart raced with excitement as passengers began streaming off the flight from Los Angeles. Then he saw her. Emma, now 9 years old, ran toward him with arms outstretched. She had grown taller, her hair was shorter, and she wore glasses now, but her smile was exactly the same. "Officer Johnson," she squealed, throwing herself into his arms. "Emma, look how big you are." Marcus hugged her tightly, then looked up too. See Sarah approaching with a warm smile. "Hello, Marcus," Sarah said, embracing him. "Thank you so much for inviting us. Are you kidding? I wouldn't have it any other way." Behind Sarah walked Jennifer, looking healthier and more vibrant than Marcus had ever seen her. She had been out of rehab for 8 months now and was working as a counselor at an addiction recovery center in Los Angeles. "Marcus," Jennifer said, extending her hand. "Never got to properly thank you." "You don't need to thank me," Marcus replied, shaking her hand. "You did the hard work of getting better." "We all did hard work," Emma said sagely. "That's what families do." We were all in Denver for Marcus and Beth's baby shower. Beth was 6 months pregnant with twins, and Emma had insisted on being there to help celebrate. As they drove from the airport, Emma chattered excitedly about school, her piano lessons, and the science fair project she was working on about airport security systems. "I told everyone in my class about how you saved me," Emma said. "My teacher said you're a hero." "You saved yourself, Emma. I just helped a little bit." "Mama Sarah says that's what heroes do. They help when people need it most." At Marcus and Beth's house, Emma immediately took charge of the party preparations. She arranged flowers, helped Beth set up the gift table, and insisted on greeting each guest personally. "This is my friend Officer Johnson," she announced to everyone. "He's the one who helped me find my family." During the party, Marcus watched Emma interact with the other children present. She had a natural way of including quieter kids in conversations and making sure everyone felt welcome. The traumatic little girl he had met at the airport had grown into a confident, empathetic child who looked out for others. Linda Rodriguez, the CPS worker who had handled Emma's case, was also at the party. She and Emma had maintained a friendship. Over the years, "She's remarkable," Linda told Marcus as they watched Emma help serve cake to the guests. "In 20 years of social work, I've rarely seen a child overcome trauma and thrive the way Emma has." "What made the difference?" Marcus asked. "Stability, love, and the fact that the adults in her life told her the truth. Sarah never made promises she couldn't keep. Jennifer took responsibility for her mistakes, and you treated her like a person worthy of respect from the very beginning." Later that evening, after most of the guests had gone home, Emma sat on the living room floor surrounded by baby gifts, carefully reading the cards aloud to Beth. This one says, "May your babies bring you as much joy as you bring to others." Emma, read. That's a nice one. Beth said, "There's something Marcus and I want to ask you." Emma looked up expectantly. "Would you like to be the baby's honorary big sister?" Marcus asked. "It's a very important job." Emma's eyes widened. "Really? What would I have to do?" Well, Beth said, "You'd have to help teach them important things, like how to be brave when they're scared and how to be kind to people who need help. And you'd have to come visit us sometimes so they can learn from the wisest kid we know," Marcus added. Emma was quiet for a moment, clearly thinking seriously about the offer. "I would love to be their big sister," she said finally. "I have a lot to teach them." That night, as Emma slept in the guest room, Marcus and Beth sat on their back porch talking about the future. "She's going to be an amazing influence on our kids," Beth said, resting her hand on her growing belly. "She's been an amazing influence on me," Marcus replied. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't been working that day, or if I'd been too busy to notice something was wrong. But you were there and you did notice. That's not a coincidence, Marcus. That's who you are." The next morning, before their flight back to Los Angeles, Emma asked Marcus to take her to see his security checkpoint at the airport. "This is where we met," she said, standing in the exact spot where she had handed him that crumpled note 2 years earlier. "This is where you taught me to pay attention," Marcus corrected. "To really see people instead of just processing them through security." Emma nodded thoughtfully. "Mama Sarah says that everyone has a story, and most people are just hoping someone will care enough to listen to it. Your Mama Sarah is very wise. She learned some of it from you," Emma said. "She told me that watching you care about me taught her how to be a better mom." As Emma's family prepared to board their flight, she hugged Marcus goodbye. "I'll call you when the babies are born," she promised. "I'm counting on it. And Emma, I'm proud of who you've become." "I'm proud of who you've become too," she said seriously. "You went from being a good person to being a great person." 3 months later, Marcus's phone rang at 3 a.m. It was Emma, calling from Los Angeles where it was midnight. "The babies are here," she announced excitedly. "Sarah let me stay up late so I could call you first." "That's wonderful, Emma. Are they healthy?" "They're perfect. 1 boy and 1 girl. Beth said to tell you she's tired but happy and that the babies can't wait to meet their honorary big sister." "What are their names?" "The girl is Katie Rose and the boy is David Marcus. Beth said they named him after you." Marcus felt his throat tighten. Katie had been his daughter's name and he knew. Beth had chosen it deliberately. "Emma, I need you to know something," he said. "Meeting you changed everything for me. You brought me back to life when I didn't even know I was just surviving." "That's what friends do," Emma said, using the same words she had spoken at her adoption party. "They help each other become who they're supposed to be." A year later, Marcus received a package in the mail. Inside was a photo album similar to the one Emma had made for his wedding. But this one documented the extended family they had all created together. There were pictures of Emma holding the twins during her Christmas visit to Denver, Sarah and Jennifer cooking together in Sarah's kitchen, Marcus and Beth at the hospital where they both now volunteered, and Jennifer speaking at a graduation ceremony for people completing addiction recovery programs on the final page. Emma had written, "This is the story of how a scary day at an airport turned into the best thing that ever happened to all of us. It taught me that families aren't just people who are related to each other. Families are people who choose to love each other and help each other grow." Below her words, she had included a new drawing. It showed a much larger group of stick figures than her original airport drawing. Marcus, Beth, the twins, Emma, Sarah, Jennifer, and Linda Rodriguez, all holding hands under a rainbow. Marcus hung the drawing on his refrigerator next to Emma's very first picture. Every morning when he saw it, he was reminded of the profound truth Emma had taught him, that sometimes the most broken moments in our lives are actually the beginning of something beautiful if we have the courage to help each other heal. Emma Rose Peterson had walked into Denver International Airport as a frightened child carrying a purple suitcase and a crumpled note. She had walked out as the catalyst for healing that would touch multiple lives for years to come. And in saving herself by trusting a stranger to help her, she had saved that stranger too. reminding him that the best part of being human is our capacity to care for one another when it matters most.